Ben, hello.
Hi.
Welcome to Class A People.
Thank you very much.
Very lucky to have you.
Appreciate it.
You have been sober
Yep.
for coming up to 6 years.
6 years and 4 days.
Not that you're counting.
Not that I'm counting.
And I think you'll be the longest sober person that we've had on the podcast, which I'm excited because hello knowledge.
Yeah.
Let me consume.
No pressure.
So I think it would be good to make this kind of like an educational for myself, basically.
sure,
Just going to be
for sure.
selfish with it.
Yep.
But I always think that childhood plays quite a big part, or at least mapping out a timeline for ourselves of when it then gets to being, the gift of desperation stage. So growing up, what was that sort of like for you?
I mean, I guess like a lot of people think stuff stems from childhood trauma, right? First and foremost. And actually, a lot of the time, the more circles I mix in the people that I talk to, you realise that it's a part of that. It's not fundamentally, we think of addiction being formed in broken homes and stuff like that, and I'm not saying that it isn't, but a lot of the time it's not. It's something within that environment which you just didn't gel with. And when you're 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, even into your teens, you don't consider that that could be the reason. And that's exactly what happened to me. I wasn't fundamentally unhappy as a child. The situation was we moved around a lot. I moved into different circles, friend circles, schools, and then abroad, and then back. And then it wasn't until I went to rehab and really dug deep that I actually learned what it was about that didn't sit right and that I took with me to adult life, right?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, as I've done more and more of these interviews, that I would say the common trait actually is self-worth. Not that you know that when you're young, and not fitting in.
Yeah.
And I think breaking down that stigma of not all addicts become addicts because of some and even the people I've spoken to have had these massive traumatic events happen, they will actually say that wasn't really the catalyst. The catalyst was the relationship I had with myself.
Exactly, and I think that rings true for me. It was just about fitting in, and that's the simplest way I can describe it.
Yeah.
It's just mentally I don't think it was a sense of that I didn't, it was just belonging. And nothing caused that. I think just the unsettled of constantly moving and grooving and moving and grooving, I took that into later life. And then I did switch jobs quick, and I did move house a lot as an adult, and I did kind of constantly move from thing to thing. And I think that was born out of what happened when I was a kid and the experience that I had with my family. So, and that eventually obviously takes its toll on you, and you suddenly feel like moving from job to job, and if you kind of project that to adult life where you're dealing with higher stakes, you're dealing with salaries and jobs and houses and relationships, and you end up just actually needing to do something to feel like you have some stability.
Would it feel odd if you sort of found yourself staying in the same place for too long once you're in your adult life?
I still think I have a pull to it now.
Yeah,
but,
like an itch.
Yeah, but not as... I understand it now.
Well, you're aware of it now, right?
And I understand it. And I think that was key for me. And I think a lot of people early in addiction try and find what was causing everything. And I think it trips a lot of people up, because it took me a good 2 years after rehab to really understand what made me tick at that time.
I think it's because we're always searching for that big thing. And sometimes, I mean, even myself, when I do these interviews, I hear some really traumatic stories. And sometimes a classic addict behaviour is to kind of be like, maybe I wasn't that bad. And so, you think, did I even really deserve to get to being the place that I got to? When actually it is just a case-by-case situation, but also it doesn't necessarily have to be a massive thing.
Yeah, the truth is that the reason it started to kind of gel was simply in rehab you do an exercise which is called Life Story.
Yes.
And I went, and after I got sober, I was about a week of detox, and when I started going to the therapy groups, there was this Life Story exercise, which was write your life story and read it to the group. And of course, I'd never done that. So I went to my room one night and wrote this 4 or 5 page life story. And at the end of it, I remember reading it to the group, and I looked up and I was like, well, was anyone entertained? Because that was dull. And everyone was just there, just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And the therapist in the room was like, and you can't see what might have... And I was like, no, I genuinely can't. Because when you live that experience, it is just the norm.
Yeah.
But when you share it with 16 randomers in a room who all have their own reason why they were addicted to substance, alcohol, whatever, they can see it better than you can. And everyone's like, holy fuck. And I'm saying that about them. And so it's a beautiful circle where you all suddenly realise that actually I'm starting to understand this.
It is also sort of that comparative thing that a lot of us do, good or bad. I mean, you know, it's kind of like when you get, I mean, one of my big understandings since getting sober is sort of, it's not about really the substance.
Yeah,
It's not
100%.
about, so not about that. Nope. It's about how you connected to it. It's about how it made you feel or not feel. You know, we always have this thing about crack and heroin and things like that, but actually, or alcohol isn't a drug. I think we could both agree it definitely is.
Yeah.
And I was saying the other day, if alcohol was sort of marketed in 2024, didn't exist, there's no way people would be buying it.
No, absolutely not. And there's too many stigmas like around this, which is just heroin is bad, crack is bad, coke is done here, alcohol's drunk here, and it's like it's all just horseshit because the mindset is exactly the same. It was the first time in my life that I've been surrounded by heroin addicts, crack addicts, everything, because we're all together in that rehab house. You can't, I took the time to listen to all of them, and everything's the same. Your rhythms are the same, your thoughts are the same, your triggers are the same, everything's the same. It's just you chose a different substance to me.
And I think the other thing is about when you. Sometimes in sort of when you're talking to people who've maybe been on a different path to you, I think it's really important to know that you just got off at a different time to them. So there's no doubt in my mind that it couldn't have gotten to where they got to. You know, like when I'm first sat in a meeting, when I first took a drug or a drink, I wasn't thinking I was going to be sat in a meeting. Therefore, there's no reason as to why it couldn't have gone a step further. You just got off the train at a different stage.
Yeah, and I think some people, you know, there's this whole thing about rock bottom, isn't there? And I think you have to, everyone's rock bottom is different, number one. It doesn't mean you're jobless, you know, you're in a state of health, you're in this state, that state, right? Everyone's looks different. And it doesn't matter when you've come to the realization that you need to change, that's just your getting off point, right? And for me, it was, you know, physical, everything. But for some people in that centre, it was just simply they knew they had to make a difference for X, Y, Z reasons, not because someone was telling them. And that's I think there's a key difference to people wanting and people needing. Just like how we want and need things in our everyday life, right, to keep us happy. You've got to need to have X, Y, Z. You've got to want to have X, Y, Z, and you have to want to change and believe in yourself, and fundamentally need as well. But you have to have that desire. It can't come from anywhere else.
No, I agree. So when did you first start drinking?
I think like every other British teen. Well,
13?
Yeah, like, you know, mum and dad gave you a couple of beers at Christmas, you had a couple of shandies with your uncle, you know, and it was normal.
Bit of minesweeping.
Yeah, and it was absolutely normal. Family parties, all the rest of it. And it was weird because for me, so that was really my teens or early teens, and then I moved to the States where drinking in teens wasn't a thing because the drinking age is 21.
Yeah, okay.
So all of a sudden you go, well, no one's drinking. You know, I moved over there and everyone was like, oh no, my parents don't give me. So I just didn't, and we got into smoking pot in a bit, but you know that's what US teens do. You have a joint instead of having a beer. Like it was nothing, and I don't remember that many times being drunk before I was 18. Like, you know, properly buzzed. Which is, so really it all then happened when I got back. Because a lot of people say they got introduced drink early and then it spiraled and whatever. But for me, that wasn't the case. I wasn't really bothered by booze.
I always find it interesting as well because you're not thinking about it as anything other than an innocent thing.
No.
You know, you're not, it's when you start to question your using and things like that. That's when your mental changes on it. But like all of us, when we're just doing it at, you know, mum and dad having a Sunday lunch and they go, "Do you want a little glass of wine?"
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me feel like an adult.
Exactly.
You know, of course.
Exactly.
There's no bad connotation around it.
No, and there still wasn't when I came back to England. I went straight to uni, and you know the usual freshes. Everyone was getting hammered, and then and then you just drink throughout uni, don't you? It's just what you do, and you learn so much looking back because my behaviour around drink was vastly different to everyone else's. Fundamentally, everyone just saw Ben at the pub having a pint, maybe having a few more than everyone else, maybe having a few more snake bite, maybe staying to the end. But it was uni. No one saw the difference. But looking back, the way that I behaved around alcohol was so different to my housemates, was so different to just other people. And I've talked to some of my good friends that I used to live with, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you were fucking obsessed.
Yeah,
you were absolutely obsessed."
I've done that.
And it's like,
because in my head, you know, we were all there on that session. We were all there drinking. We were all there doing. And it's like, no, you were a fiend for it.
Exactly. You were pining for it. You couldn't stop. It was like,
and
where's...
also the apparently, like, the way I used to drink so quickly, and with other things, the excessiveness of it. And when I learned from my sponsor, she said that, well, she obviously, lots of people know this now, but when an addict, the first drink or the first drug, they will have a different reaction to it than as for someone who doesn't have that. It alters the brain chemistry. Yeah. And I used to think, no, because I was just like everyone else. I look back on it, I think, no, I was very different. Yeah. Straight 100%. Off the bat.
If we were, and if a quick pint down the pub wasn't in my vocabulary. No. That was a door to see how long I could get everyone to stay out to get fucking twatted. Yeah. And it was that every time. It wasn't, the quiet Sunday pint was not that for me. It was... It was an open door to try and push the night into something else. And that was, that was 18, 19, 20, 21. But again, it's all great seeing that in hindsight. But when I was in that time, the thing is, we mask everything there, right? Is at that time I could see that I wanted booze more than anyone else, but I was in uni, right? This is what we do.
But also, you've become a master at masking, because if you think about it, you've been going from this school to that school, so you've got to got to drop those friends, and then you've got to go and reinvent yourself and reintroduce yourself somewhere else. Yeah. And looking back, that is, that's unsettling, but also it's created a coping mechanism for you to conform to different social circles all the time. And
then you become to a point which is interesting, is you start to crave that, right? Because you've conformed this way into gelling with constant groups and going like this the whole time. When I was in uni, it was always just seeking out the next group who was doing what I wanted to do. And people used to go, God, how do you have that many friends? And it's like, well, I don't think I've got deep relationships with anyone, but I can bounce between 100 groups going out on every night of the week, knowing exactly what they're doing, what their plans are, where I'm going, where I'm staying, and it's like, you just carry that with you, and that just becomes the norm.
And that's your role as well, I think, or if Ben's there, we're going to have a good, you know what to expect when you're there. It was like, if I was there, they knew what to expect.
And the whole thing about not fitting in is you start to fit in, and then you start to be the centre of attention, because Ben always brings all the booze and the drugs and the whatever, and it's going to be a fucking great night. But then you get in the space of, as people start to cotton on, oh, now you don't get invited to quiet Sunday lunches. Yeah. Because you're just going to get, you're going to try and take it too far.
Or you're going to take whoever's birthday it is and make it about you. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly that. But, I still think we masked that with the time of our lives that was, or certainly I did.
Alcohol is such a great component for people that mask. Yeah. It's such a enabler. Because it exaggerates it all, and it makes the character, well, it's a perfect combination. Yeah. So that by the end of it, you're left once again just with yourself, but you don't know who you are without it. But also, am I that person that goes out with that group or that one? Am I the person when I come home to my parents? Am I that? Am I this?
And I think that's where it starts to escalate, at least, because now this nice little thing that you started to build is now actually turning against you. Yeah. So now you're like drinking to try and work out what the fuck's going on. And I mean, if we're kind of going in a timeline here, but that's almost the next section for me, was after that uni experience of all that shifting around. It was after I finished uni, I started to manage a pub, and everyone laughs because hilarious, right? Alcoholic ran a pub. But it was just a good job on the table for me at the time. It was in the city that I loved. I lived and worked upstairs. I got, management experience, and it was great. But
transferable skills.
Exactly. And that's when, instead of, it then became annoying to be the guy that was doing all of that. And it's weird how it changed from at uni, it was fine, but that you just started to feel like it was tiring. So then you start to get complacent, and you go, well, I run a pub with lots of alcohol, so I've got everyone coming to me now. This is great.
And it's the expectation.
Yeah.
No, you're expected. Yeah. You are that, they're running the pub.
You're the face of the pub. Yeah. And I loved being that guy. Because what I'd spent so long doing...
But now everyone was coming to you.
Actually, I'm like a spider's web. Yeah. Right? And I've got the place that stays open late. And I've got the place where we lock the door and fucking rack it. I've got the fun place. Now it's all centred around me.
And you're all coming to me. I now no longer have to move from here to here to here to here. Yep. Everyone's coming to me.
And I do think you would get burnt. So naturally, you try and create that. And that's where a friend of mine was in a similar situation, but he made it his house. And it was very interesting looking back, seeing the two almost, just places where people went in the town. And it was either the pub or his.
Very easy to... I think it's some of the people I know who have dealt drugs, for example, it's the same thing. You create an environment where you feel needed, and then as soon as you stop selling the drugs or serving the booze, you realise actually, are they really my friends? You know, were they just coming there because I give them a free pint of the bar? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly, 100%. And I think after that's kind of that in a nutshell is where I got to. And that's where you start to then go, okay, well, what do I do afterward? Because I was in the pub 24/7, right? It was my job. So then I start to go, okay, what can I do to prove to myself that I'm not just alone, that people aren't just using me or coming to me? So that's where you start then I started stepping out and going to my friend's late night bar. And then I was actually drinking then from, 11 o'clock first pint, local buys you a pint at yours. You realise, okay, I'm drinking all day, or now I'm drinking till 2 o'clock in the morning.
Such an enabler as well. It's not like, I've had people on before who've worked in hospitality, and last week we had a girl who was a stripper, so she, that fits very nicely into your nice addict lifestyle because you're working nights, you've got men giving you free drugs. It's a similar situation, working in a role where it's not really at risk.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's an expectation. Oh, it's pissed, always hungover when you're on to pub.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
You know what? If you turn up to work hungover at a pub, the first thing someone's doing is buying you a pint.
Yeah.
And that's what we lived off. That's what I did. And,
So very quickly then, from university, when you start running that, the drinking is becoming a daily...
Yeah, but not consciously.
No.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
So I was drinking daily, yes, but it was out of what I believe to be good nature. Locals buying me beers, me going to a friend's birthday, me going to my mate's pub after work. It was all very just social, right? It was still in that social sphere. And I think and we'll get onto it, but where social then crosses into alone is where things always seem to take a turn, right? So we're still in the social sphere.
Come on then, give me a good lock-in story. There must be one.
Probably, well, nearly where we got the license taken away.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. We were very, very close. And I won't name names and I won't name the pub because it's doing very well now. But yeah, it was...
Close call.
It was a very close call near Christmas time, yeah. But there were plenty of them. It was just, centre of attention.
How long are we working at the pub?
Nearly 3 years. So it wasn't that long of a stint.
No.
And I, hilariously, and this is just everything being masked again. So I thought the job was the problem, not the fact that I was drinking my face up. So I was like, I need a change. So I talked to my dad and I said, look, I need a change. I don't know what to do. You've got this, I did.
But also probably that itch,
Yeah, to change again.
Yeah.
100%. There was nothing tying me to the pub. I didn't have a partner at the time, didn't have anything. I was like, right, what do I do now? I feel like it's almost like I'd graduated stages of life. Like I'd navigated the childhood. I'd done the US. Nothing was really that bad. Did uni okay. We're still ticking boxes right along the path of life. So nothing's the matter. So yeah, I did that for like 3 years, and then went to London and just started an internship.
Yeah.
I was like, I need a change. I didn't know what to do. I went to an interview for a job where they said, oh, why do you want to join this company? What do you know? And I said, honestly, I don't know anything about this industry. I'm just eager to learn.
Mould me.
Yeah, put on a good face and they took it. And so I started in London and worked in marketing and PR, did that. I'm still doing that now, but did about 4 years of that for one company. And it was fine. Nothing was different. I was still then going out, I'd swap the pub locals for the work people.
Yeah, you don't feel as lonely maybe because you're now doing... that thing that you're probably supposed to be doing, which is getting into that corporate life. You'd have growing up. I'm in the city now.
Yeah.
But also, everyone that's around you is kind of on the same path.
Yeah.
That's what I found.
Exactly.
In London.
And all you're doing is, throughout this whole experience, all you're doing is ticking boxes that prove you're normal. Right? So you're in the pub, you've got people there, they're cheering you on, they're doing this, box ticked, I'm doing something normal. Oh, I moved to London, this is right, and now I'm starting my career, box ticked. I've moved in with some mates, I'm paying rent, I'm doing this nice thing, box ticked, got a promotion, box ticked. Yeah. All this undercarriage is still going, that you're still drinking every single day with people that you don't really want to drink with, but they're out, so I'm going to carry on, right? And I moved in with housemates that I didn't know, and of course, what do you do when you meet new people? Oh, let's go for a drink.
Absolutely.
So nothing changes. But it was a good time. That did start my career, and there was nothing wrong with.
I'm very passionate about that. Like none of us, of course it got dark and it got scary, but there's plenty of good times, because when you're not actively thinking that it's a problem, that's the difference.
Yeah, and I think that you don't.
But also everyone around you, this society, this country, it is, it's what we do.
Yeah.
Any occasion. There's drinks there.
And it's still, you know, we're still in the norms of, my mindset wasn't normal, but my behaviour was still normal. I was still having hangovers. I wasn't drinking on those hangovers. I was still going to work. I was still getting through the day. I wasn't trying to drink every day, but it just kind of happened.
Yeah, all those parameters of obviously when it crosses, as we know, so the drinking in the morning, you know, the planning of your using, the scheduling. But you don't ever know about those until you decide to head down that path.
Yeah, well, until it just starts happening.
Yeah.
And you still don't know about it when it's happening.
No.
And that for me, if we're crossing onto that bridge, that for me was the next job in London. So the second job I had was where that all started. And it was a wrong move for me to move to that agency that I was at. I was very comfortable where I was. There was a good path. But again, I needed change.
Yeah.
So I went to where I thought was a good move. And it just wasn't. And it wasn't that I was out my depth. I didn't think about it enough. I just wanted to tick moving jobs. I wanted to change. I wanted something to budge. I was just a bit bored.
Why wasn't it a good move?
I think the job itself wasn't what I thought it was, but then that's down to me because I didn't pay enough attention to it. I just knew I wanted something to change, and so it seemed like it could work. I knew they'd hire me, so because I was actually working on their account in the other job, so we'd already talked about it, and I just thought, fuck it, why not? I'm still early creative stages of career, get this experience. Worst that will happen is I'll go back to the other agency who kind of were saying don't leave, and it was just. Did
you quite like that sort of the fight
100%.
over you?
Yeah, definitely. They were offering me more money. I still walked out, and I'm not. It wasn't about that for me. It was about fulfilling what I needed, and that's kind of a trend.
Again, I've done that now. Yeah. On to the next.
And that's a trend that I now see a lot in me. Is like once I've fulfilled that need here, I'll go over here, and once I've done that, I just keep moving. But this job, honestly, threw a spanner in the works, and it was just the job. It was situation. It was certain people that it was almost for the first time I'd come across people that I was butting heads with that I wasn't quite gelling with, and it's like
the wool over their eyes.
Yeah, and it was just a bit like, will you just fuck off?
Yeah.
And the only way to get around that is just go round them, right? So I start dodging and I start doing and I start kind of, and that made me feel very uncomfortable, right? Because that's not who I am fundamentally, and I just started to feel. Again, that feel of instability was there again, almost like childhood had suddenly come in this job, and I hadn't felt that way since moving all those schools. And I only know that now, but I can feel me getting uneasy because it was just almost like that feeling had come back where it was like, this isn't right, but I can't do jack shit about it. And that's when I started drinking more, and not with the people from work. Fundamentally, that was the key this time. It was like I was having 6 Guinnesses on the way home just because I wanted to forget the day I just had. And that kept happening. And every day I finished work, I'd kind of be on the phone to my partner at the time. So I'm just going to stop in here, just going to stop in here. There were 6 pubs on the walk from work to home, and I used to stop in every one. And
Are you kind of always quite used to people liking you? So like these different places, you know, you could just conform, you see what they're all like, and then you get yourself into that kind of version. Not you, but kind of, you know how to talk to them, you know what to say, you know, do you know what I mean? And then at this new place, it was kind of like,
And I think that worked well and not well, because I knew that I didn't have that with the people at work. But when I started to map out my route home to just, you know, because, you know, what does Dad do when he gets home from a hard day at work? You crack a beer. So I just started to do that, right? But then every one of these pubs on the way, I started to develop friends. So now it's like, on the way home, it's like, should I stop in that one? Yeah, I can't leave Frank on his own today. Who's he going to talk to? Yeah. I'll just go to the next one. Matt will be in there. Yeah, just have a quick one with Matt. By the time you get home, you're rat-assed.
But you convinced yourself that it's because, you know, you couldn't possibly leave those
leave those and I had a hard day, so I had to treat myself, number one.
Of course.
And I couldn't possibly leave Steve on his own to have a gin and tonic, because that would just be rude.
Horrible.
So that happened for a while, and that's just what I told myself.
Are we getting sort of into the realms of bad hangovers and things like that?
Oh yeah.
And how much are we kind of drinking at this stage? Are you trying to pack in as much as you can before you get home? Are you living with a partner?
At the time, no. I was with a housemate.
Okay.
So this was still considered, I guess, in the realms of social normity, right? I wasn't drinking in the morning. I was just having a few on the way home, which sometimes was a few more than others.
Every night?
Every night, yeah. Pretty much every night, yeah. I mean, there would always be the odd one where you're like, oh.
And those are the great ones, because then you convince yourself that it's not a problem.
Right.
Because I've had one night off.
Yeah. Or I just stopped in for one pint tonight. And I get home and I'm like, I'm going to cook this really nice meal and really enjoy it. Look at me go, right?
Yeah.
What a load of shit.
One time in like 3
and it
months.
stays in the Tupperware in the fridge for like the next 3 weeks. So yeah, that was. Yeah, so that was. I think that's the first time the drinking became a bit cyclical, right? It became regular. It was like at the pub, it was very sporadic. It was kind of this, that, and the other. My first job, it was still sporadic. It was kind of when someone wanted to, I went. Now it became, this was the routine.
And would it be that even if you knew that those maybe regular people weren't going to be there, you still nip in because someone else might pop in?
Yeah,
that
of course.
Know?
Yeah,
But
by
you
then
also
I
had
knew Steve
no
and
issue-
Frank, and then I knew the bar lady, and then I knew that person.
Yeah, so
and they'd be bored on their shift if I didn't stop him.
Of course.
Of course.
Yeah, okay. So no issue going there in on your own.
No, and that's
That probably comes from working in the pub.
I think so, but I think that develops. So that is when
You're also very confident, I'm sure, with walking into new places, not necessarily new, but there'll always be new people in there because you've had to do that your whole life. You know, meet a new group of people,
Quite.
meet a new group
Yeah.
of people.
and all the booze was making that easier.
Yeah.
But it was still. I mean, yeah, you generally stop caring a little bit because you're there for one thing, and if someone's there that you can talk to, great. Otherwise, I can sit in the corner, just get out a newspaper, and you look like you're reading the newspaper. Also, you think everyone's looking at you like, oh, he's just stopping. Oh, he must. Oh, look at him reading the newspaper. It's
Yeah,
like,
well, actually, no one gives a shit, but you
think they do.
Yeah, of course you do.
And it's normal, right? Because you've got a newspaper or a laptop
Yeah.
out. It's like my laptop's just black. I'm not even looking at anything, but I'm just sitting there drinking Guinness.
God,
and
I used
everyone,
to do that on the train back
Yeah.
from London all the time.
and it's like, well,
My laptop would be run out of battery.
Exactly.
Very
Yeah.
professional.
but everyone will think I'm
Yeah.
something else,
Got it
right? So
together.
we're trying to. Oh yeah. So yeah, the cyclical drinking started then, right? And basically, long story short, the nights got longer and longer and longer. The more places I stopped into over like a year period. And then I don't know what happened, but I turned up to work one day feeling. I remember it like yesterday because I walked straight in and I was first in. And I walked straight up the stairs and I picked up the biggest Sports Direct mug I could find in the kitchen. There was only one. And I knew that it was like a classic ad agency, so there was just fucking booze everywhere. And I walked in and I just found the open bottle of rosé that had been drunk on the Thursday night. And I was like, well, there's only fucking one way to stop this. And just filled the whole mug and just sat there in the top floor kitchen and drank it.
Were you hungover?
Yeah,
right, okay.
Yeah, I felt I don't know what it was about this day. I had the hangover from hell. I just felt empty. I don't know I can't remember what I did the night before. Whether there was something in it that didn't sit right, I don't know. But
Hair of the dog, perfect answer.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it just stands out because I'd never done it until that point. I'd never kind of gone for the cheeky, Bloody Mary. That just wasn't me up until
No.
no matter how much I drank and
I
binge
was like
drank
that.
and did everything in between. And I think it's the point that we were saying before, you're ticking boxes of normality. And the moment you have a hair of the dog, especially fucking at work, oh, we've just unchecked that box of normality because
Yeah.
fucking no one else is doing that today, are they?
Yeah.
And I think that's why over that kind of, the starting period of the heavy drinking was I kept that normality. I didn't day drink. I could drink as much as I wanted at night, but I kept that boundary. And now that boundary has just been crossed in one move.
When you're doing it, are you thinking I shouldn't be doing this?
As it went on, yeah. I mean, in that moment, I think I drank it and I was like, oh shit. Like, what?
Hangover's gone, feel great.
Yeah.
This is good.
But there was this thing at the back of your head was like, oh no. And I think there was this thing at the back of my head that was more like, you're going to do that again.
Yeah.
Because look how good today's just gone.
Yeah.
Friday, fucking what a Friday.
You found the,
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, when I found diazepam with doing cocaine, oh, I can sleep now, so I can do all the coke I want.
Right.
It is that same thing of, I've unchecked the box of normality, but I can kind of brush it under the carpet because I found another way to meander through it.
Exactly. And I've just become a better me during the day because of it. So yeah, that's when that started, and it didn't stop. No.
So does work ever start to smell it, notice it?
No. So in this job, no. I managed to get through, I think, another 6 months, and by this point, it was like, again, creating this illusion. I asked for the office key because I was so keen. I was there early every day, and then of course it wasn't just the half bottle of rosé that was probably a week old in the fridge. It was there. No, there's a bit of vodka in that bottle. Oh, it's just
stronger.
And then you heard the door go, and then you're like fuck. So you try and drink it quicker, and then anyway, so then it transpired. And I think back, and I'm like, Jesus, you really took some risks because naturally the morning eked into I'm a bit thirsty and it's lunchtime, I can feel the hangover coming
But also
back.
you're getting away with it, right?
Completely,
And
yeah.
that's also, I don't know, it's kind of thrilling.
Yeah.
On top of it, it definitely is.
Yeah.
And you're performing well, or you're not acting
Well,
drunk.
you think, you think you are, yeah. And it was, you're right, actually. It was this, because I remember, and you know what's crazy? Whenever you talk about it, it's like, I can literally feel the feelings that I felt when I was like trying to see how quickly I could push the coffee machine to make a noise, crack open a bottle of wine, put it in a mug, drink it, and put the same mug back under the coffee machine before someone came out the loo.
That was like
and it became an
in
art.
the toilet, flushing the toilet at
Yep.
the right time of sipping the Coke. It's like,
Yep.
you know, but you become a master at it.
Exactly.
And then you walk out and you're back in that character and you're like, okay, yeah, great, got to get that proposal done, yeah, sure.
Exactly.
And you're just...
Yeah, you're you again, right? And that's the scary bit, is when you start to kind of, and you don't think it at the time, but you're just thinking, oh, I'm back to normal. And then naturally, to not risk complications at work, then you start to go out every lunch break and you're like, oh, there's a great pub just around the corner. And this
Gonna
old...
take a client out for some lunch.
Right. And then, and from there, I think once you get into, it doesn't matter what time or when you start or how you start or what you do, but it's just that cyclical behaviour of,
Scheduling.
I'm now just churning.
I've got my routine.
Yeah. And it wasn't down to an art at that point, but it was... And I wouldn't even say, you know, if we're talking physicality and stuff, it wasn't at a point where I'd be withdrawing, I'd just be hungover. So I hadn't crossed that boundary
Are
yet.
you drinking to black out at this point, or are you...
No.
Did you sort of have a time where you would stop? Did you find it easy to stop?
I just stopped when I was pissed and at home. It was just,
Fall asleep.
I think at this point, because you know what the next day's bringing, I was definitely drinking to fall asleep at this point. But it wasn't more than that. It was just to take the day away. And then you drink in the morning to make the day happen, and then you try and take it away again. It was... I don't want to say manageable, but it was, at that point, if I was to label it was a functioning alcoholic.
Yeah.
Because I can't say I wasn't an alcoholic, because who the fuck else is doing that in the office? No one. And I felt like it was what I needed, but it wasn't physical at that point. It was just, I think it was a mental fixation, obsession, just what.
And is there any point along this sort of period where you're thinking, this is wrong?
Yeah, I still think I had some, like, yes and no, because like you said, I'm doing this to be the best version I can be today.
Yeah.
And it very much was, because a lot of people say, well, didn't you look back at, over that few months and realise, and it's like, no, because you live day to day. You don't, weekly and monthly doesn't exist to me.
No.
It's, am I getting through this day?
And also, I've got through that day, so therefore,
Yeah.
there's no consequences.
And there as soon as I walked out of that office, there wasn't a thought about that day that went back through my head. Then all it was on is, where's the first pub door? Where's the second pub door? Who do I need to call on the way to make sure? Yeah. And then obviously you wake up in the morning and you go, oh, God. And then your only focus then is getting to the work door so that you can do what you did again. Because I wasn't drinking at this point. I wasn't drinking before I got to work for some reason. That hadn't entered the sphere. It's almost like I didn't need to do that until I needed to be presentable in front of people. And for some reason, because a lot of people said to me when I've shared my story before, they're like, why don't you just have it at home and then go to work? I'm like, well, I didn't need to be anyone on the way to work. I just could be a mess on the tube. And then, but it was when I needed to be there and be present, was like, oh, I need to turn the switch on.
I'm just thinking in terms of alcohol compared to cocaine. Obviously, being drunk, Coke obviously sobers you up, therefore you can drink a lot more. Did you ever have times where, are you slurring words? Or were you just... Because I know very, very good drunks. There are people who you would not know. Terrifyingly so.
Yep. Yeah, I was very good.
Yeah.
There's no other way to put it.
Most people are, though.
There were a couple of times in that job, before I go on to the next one, which is where it really shows how much of a master you become.
Okay.
But also a couple of sets. But I'll never forget, I was in a meeting and I bought a big innocent smoothie because it was the best thing to put spirits in, because it stunk so, so sugary and fucking fruity and whatever. So I dumped like a good, 2/3 of it out and just filled it with vodka. And I took it into a fucking stakeholders meeting and I was like, right, here we go, with a client, all the rest of it. And there was just something in me that I didn't want to be in the meeting. I didn't want to be there. And I was just like, so I knew it was there and I was just sipping on this bottle, obviously. But I could fit, but because it was like 2/3 vodka, it was like a good 200ml bottle in there or whatever. It was like one of the half-litre containers. And I'm just sipping there, and all of a sudden I start to go, oh, fuck. And I'm like looking at the telly, and I'm literally like shitting I am fucked.
Really pissed.
And I'm now in a state because I'm praying no one asks me anything. And of course they fucking do. So I'm like there, and I've literally glossed over. Like, I don't even know what client we're with, let alone what slide we're fucking on, right? So I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, I feel like everything's moving. And the guy goes, oh, Ben, just talk us through the strategy for blah, blah, blah. And it's probably the first time I literally just froze. I couldn't
get it together.
The fear and with two clients in the room of one.
Because you've had the realisation whilst you sat there, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I didn't walk in pissed. I've suddenly just gone like a walk.
But the fruitiness of that sort of thing would make you think that you probably convinced yourself that there wasn't forgetting that there's even vodka in there.
I genuinely think I did. And also I know I forgot what I'd had before the meeting to kind of settle every nerves before that. So yeah, I was sitting, and it was a bad moment. I think I just got asked to leave. And
what did you say? Nothing.
No, I used to sit next to my boss, and I think I took him aside. I honestly can't remember. I think I just said, look, I just had a moment. I'm really sorry. Like,
brain freeze.
Yeah, I just said, I don't even know what I said. Anyway, I still stayed there for like a couple of months, but it came to an end. And in my exit interview, they basically just said, look, you're just not right in this position. I said, I totally agree. And they were just like, oh, so you're just going to go walk out? I said, yep, just tell me what you're going to give me and I'm out.
Yeah.
And I literally left my laptop there that day and just left. And I since have had conversations with the boss, and he was like, no idea.
No idea.
Like, I had no idea.
No.
Well, actually, I started kind of my Instagram, my blog and stuff, and he saw it and he reached out and he was like, I had no fucking idea. What is all of this? I was like, yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
So yeah, I left there in a bit of just in a behaviour pattern. And it by then the seed had well and truly been sown. I think losing that job kind of put things into perspective. It was where I was at, but not enough to take me out of the behaviour that I built.
You've lost the job, but you haven't lost the job because you're drinking.
Exactly.
So
I wonder
in your head, it's still, actually, no, I wasn't right for the role.
Exactly.
In fact. Yeah, no, they're right. And it is time for another change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Box ticked. Survived that exit interview.
Yeah, loads of people move on from other jobs.
Yeah. And I remember that. I remember,
It's probably the right time to go anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was. And I knew that, you give yourself everything under the sun, don't you, on why it was right. And then the best part is literally 3 weeks later, I got hired into another job. So go me.
Yeah, well, exactly, yeah. Can't be doing anything wrong.
Exactly. And that's,
and this is the bad job, I'm presuming.
Yeah. This is the
We're going to start unfraying now.
Yeah.
Splitting at the seams.
And I just don't know how the fuck it all happened, if I'm honest. This next year was like, I still look back and I'm like, I don't know how I did it.
Because of the progression of how quick it suddenly went.
The progression of my drinking, the progression of how I lost control, the job itself was bigger than any job I'd been put on. I was getting paid more money, travelling for work.
Oh, hotels.
And it's like, how the fuck did I do that?
Yeah.
And either they were so preoccupied, and I'm talking like, again, I'm not going to name, but we're talking big ass fucking company, like global company. I was one of many, many people on a huge project that was in Germany. Basically, I got hired to work on this one project that took us to Germany to do this massive thing, this big event. And everything leading up to it was for this event, and I was shit scared about going to Germany because I've got my routine.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? I have to get with strangers on an airport to a hotel with all these fucking randomers, right? Number one, how am I going to get through that without having? Because at this point, it had escalated enough to go, well, I know what I need to be my best self. Yeah. It wasn't to function. It wasn't to keep everything at bay. It was just be my best self. And I thought, well, right, I've got to get in a cab at 5. So you do I'm starting to plan now.
Yeah.
But I'm more, I'd say, starting to plan when it comes to extremes, but I'm more listening to myself and more responding to my body than I am planning. And I just knew that things would happen if I didn't have what I needed at certain points. So this trip was like a huge anxiety trip.
Yeah.
This was massive. Because I don't know the first thing about Cologne, Germany, let alone where the offies are.
Are they going to be open at the same time as my ones?
Right.
Are they going to serve what I like? Are we going to,
when am I going to drink?
Panic.
Also.
Yeah.
So
when am I going to be on my own? When am I?
Exactly.
How often am I going to be with other people? What's the schedule?
And so this trip happens basically. All the behaviour carried over from the previous job, so I won't go over that again. But this trip happens. And we're in Germany, and luckily we're across the road from an offie.
Praise God.
Thank you very much. So basically, I learn when everyone fucks off, there's a little break between the end of the day and dinner where I can go over to this little mart, pick up a litre of basically Russian vodka, go back to the room, have it away before the evening. Okay, cool. Day 1 and 2, fine. Did that, no problem. So basically drank half a litre before dinner, half a litre in the morning, it would keep me going. So I'm like, okay. And I'm there like, there's no issue with this, here we go. This is going to be a great event.
Sussed it.
And we were managing a load of visitors that were coming. And so I had like 10 people to basically chaperone, make sure they got from A to B, book them cabs. Well, you can imagine how that turned out. So I tried my best and then basically shoved it onto someone else because I figured they can't fire me in the middle of a trip. So I basically shoved it all over to this assistant who, well, I think did the job. I don't know. They all turned up. But basically by day 3 and 4, I figured I could just carry on this behaviour and just get through the fucking trip. That's all I need to do is get through this trip because there's no help button here. I'm in the middle of Germany. And I think I was acutely aware of that, which is why I was so anxious, so scared. There was no normality here. It was very much out of my behaviour or out of normality. So, of course, the litre of vodka a day turns into 2 on this trip. So now I'm turning up to the pre-event meeting absolutely stinking. I don't know what's going on. Oh, Ben, have you read the pre-document? Yeah, it's all fine. Don't even worry about it. I'm standing there with a bottle of orange juice full of... And I am totally out of it. Like, it makes me uncomfortable thinking about those moments when I was literally in front of very important people, taking them from place to place. And I honestly don't remember half the trip.
Okay, so you're delegating things out now.
Yeah. So I'm at this event.
But you're never like stumbling or anything.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Right.
No, I was still a bit.
You're not like a loud, brash drunk.
No, because that's not me. I was just me, just pissed. And it just went on. And long story short, we got through the trip. Fuck knows how, but we got through the trip. But it was full of many occasions like that. I missed and this is what I don't know. We'll talk about it later, but this is, I think, where lack of knowledge is massive, or lack of understanding, or even people looking out for this kind of thing within a corporate world, or in fact any world, because I was like missing. So when the day had gone and we had that break, no one had cottoned on that after that break, I then didn't show up to any meals, any drinks in the evening, any fucking... And I was getting caught. There was like calls on my mobile, literally missed call. And everyone the next morning would be like, where were you last night? And I was like, I was so tired, man. I just fell asleep. And they were like, well, you need to show up for these dinners. Like, clients are paying us to be at these dinners. I'm like, yeah, sorry, I'm just really tired. Like, no, it's like, why is no one cottoning on to this?
Yeah, or taking it any further.
No, and...
Again, no repercussion.
Yeah, so that's how the trip went. We came back anyway. I then survived at the job like 3 or 4 months, and then someone sat me down and said, look, Ben, we just don't think you're right. You're not really performing. And actually, the trip was one thing, but being back in the office was a whole nother. Like, because... The trip actually seemed to... I was on this, like, slow bit of, like, drinking more at work. The trip just went, okay, now we're drinking straights all day at work. So when we got back from that trip...
You've set the tone now.
I'd set the tone. Yeah, so now I'm in London again, and I'm like...
Well, we can't just go back to...
Yeah, so now I'm early morning vodka on the tube on the way in, 3 double gin and tonics at lunch.
What's the concealment for you? Because I know lots of people are different. Did you have a... set thing?
Yeah, which I'm quite sad about because I used to love Ribena, but it was a Ribena bottle and I used to dump 3/4 of it out, fill it with vodka, so now I can't drink Ribena, which makes me really sad. So
how's that day looking, drinking wise?
So that day now would be...
Wake up.
Yeah, go to the same off licenses every morning, be on first name basis with the guy who opened at 6 a.m. every day.
Yes, I had that situation. Do you want the usual?
Yeah.
Yes. God.
It reaches out, Glenn's vodka, literally. And he used to, you also think... What was going through this guy's head?
Yeah.
Because for some reason he had a little sink next to his counter, which fuck knows why. And every day he would let me go in at 7, empty out the Ribena, empty in the bottle. Cheers, mate. Put those in the bin for me. See you later. And I'm like, what the fuck were you thinking? And I'm like, no, I'm not blaming him.
I know you can't blame.
I'm not blaming anyone.
Time, that's a serious bit of enabling right there.
Oh, mate, just notice what you're doing. Like, are you okay? And I'd have been like, fuck off. But,
of course you would, yeah.
But it would have been nice. So there's that on the way.
That's a learning though, like for anyone who is listening.
And that's why I'm saying it. Yeah, I'm saying it jovially, but it's more like,
Yeah, and again, you're saying about the corporate world stuff, to look out for those things.
Yeah. There definitely can be a lot done in that area.
Okay, so you're going to the offer. The first time that you... How does that work when does he just recognise that you buying Ribena and vodka at the same time?
I think the first few times I said it was for office birthdays.
Classic, yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, it's so-and-so's birthday. And then one time I think I went in and he just gave me a really wry smile and just started to reach back. And I was like, I don't need the excuses anymore. This guy's just going to, I'm great. I'm giving him business at 7 a.m. So yeah, it was that on the way in on the tube. And then that was usually enough to hold bay till about 11 o'clock. And then the pub around the corner opened at 11. So I'd go on a ciggy break at 11, go and get a double gin and tonic, go back in, usually had another break, like every 2 hours there was a double gin and tonic. And if not, maybe 2 if I could squeeze it in. And then lunch break, it was about 4 Guinnesses usually, and then back to work for the afternoon.
Tolerance-wise then, at what point are you feeling, as you say, your best self? Afternoon.
The afternoon, yeah. The morning the morning was always a struggle. The afternoon, you might get your best self is now becoming harder to reach.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So after Germany, your best self is suddenly being pushed back until at the moment, and then really your best self is actually at night when you've gone home and you can meet your mates at the pub, to give you that sense of normality and you actually still have a life. So your best self
Forgetting
is actually...
about the fact that you've done with the day that you've done with booze, because now you're in the pub, everyone else is in the pub, that bit didn't happen, we're starting again. And
you're turning up and your mates can notice you're a little bit buzzed, or sometimes like, oh yeah, we just had a few work drinks. Client lunch, whatever. So yeah, it was all day, every day by then. Just at this point, I've got like little illustrations on the way through that show that really illustrate how bad it was. But so at that point, it's starting to become physical, right? It's starting to like
the shakes.
A few hours in, I'm like, and the tolerance isn't even like, my shakes are coming 2 hours after a drink. That shows you how quickly my body has learned. Now we're processing alcohol at a fucking alarming rate. Double gin and tonic's gone out, and now I'm shaking again. So how much I had to drink changed. And my worst nightmare at work was like the meeting with the innocent smoothie and the screen fucking spinning. The next one was like random meetings when people were like, oh guys, can we just grab an hour in here please? I'm like, oh god, so, what, an hour?
That wasn't in the diary.
Exactly.
I didn't schedule that.
Oh, I tried all of that. Oh no, I've got a call. No, they haven't. We checked your diary, get in here. Because it's been corporate, there's no fucking messing around. They're like, you're in that room. So so luckily this one time this happened. Usually I manage to kind of, like people give you a bit of notice, right? So you run out for a quick ciggy, which meant round the corner for a gin and tonic. And the bartender there as well, as soon as he saw my face in the door, he was already pouring. Ready. So that was really handy. That got really handy in the end.
But you didn't have time.
But I didn't have time this time, did I? But what I did have, which was lucky, was it was my birthday 2 days before. And the team had given me, hilariously, which shows the complete lack of speculation about what was going on, they gave me a box of beers.
Of course.
So I'm like, great. So I've got these 6 bottles of beers, really strong Belgian beers, in my locker at work. So I'm like, right, how am I going to do this? Because, of course, my Ribena bottle is empty, so I'm really fucked. So I'm like, right, it has to be the beers. No other way to do this. Yeah. So I literally go to my locker, somehow get them all in my bag, run to the disabled toilet, and start
the disabled toilet. I've seen so many situations.
If only there was a camera or fly on that wall.
I used to nap. Sometimes I used to set a timer. If I'd done an all-nighter and I hadn't slept, I'd come in, be all fine, and then if I had a scarf or a jumper and I set a timer, I'd lock that disabled. Bless anyone that came in that was actually disabled.
Yeah, right.
Selfish bitch.
Yeah, but they'd be the selfish ones for wanting to get into my space.
Yeah. Sorry.
No.
So you get the beers into the bag.
So I'm there, I'm in the bag, I'm in the toilet, and I'm cracking all these beers open on the sink, and I'm literally trying to chug them as fast as I can. And they're like, these are thick, but 12%, 14% beers. And I'm like, crack open next one. Because I knew exactly what would happen. I knew I'd be in that meeting, I'd start to sweat, I'd start to shake, I'd start to panic, this was an easier risk than starting to have withdrawals in that meeting.
Are you conscious of the smell of your breath?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're doing lots of chewing gum, I'm presuming?
Yeah. And you know what, at this point, and literally, as I'm about to say that, I went like that. Because your hands and your paws just reek. And that was my biggest thing. Is like, when you're drinking that much at work, you don't, it's not necessarily your breath, because you can mask that. And I drank spirits, so you can hide that. And you drink, high-flavoured stuff. But throughout the day, I used to sit there and sniff my hand. Because, funnily enough, and this is where it gets really fucked up, is, one, if they really smell, then it meant that I'd probably had enough booze at that time.
That was how you leveled.
It was my comfort blanket. So I used to sit in my chair. Oh yeah, I'm okay. I'm all right. If there wasn't that smell, I'd be like, oh, shit, well, we need to
Gotta
top
have a bit
up.
more.
Yeah, but also you became very aware that smell, people could generally,
Yeah.
But, you know, you figure they probably thought you had a heavy night before or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, this is the thing, no one questions you on
No,
it.
but they don't. And working in London, and especially in creative industries,
Yeah.
it's quite normal.
Yeah.
You know, it's normal.
And it's the same with, again, it could be any stuff, no one is questioning. And in that job was really where it started. That job laid the foundation of where I was headed next, and I wasn't questioned once.
So what about friends you're living with and friends in this situation, you know?
Yeah.
Is anyone at this point picking up on anything?
No, not massively. I mean, yeah, the housemate that I live with,
Yeah.
he knew I drank a lot. It kind of, he would look out for me. He's a good. I'm still really good friends with him to this day, and he was always looking out for more my safety. I come home and there'd be certain things, and he'd kind of pick up on things and be like, "Mate, you know, there'd just be odd things. Like I bring random fucking people back to do whatever, and he'd be like, "Mate, this is our house." Like, and he always checked in, but I don't think it comes across people's minds to think Ben is a fucking full-blown alcoholic. Because they don't want to see you in that aspect. Neither do your bosses. Your bosses don't want to see that they've hired a fucking alcoholic. They don't want to know, they don't want... So I don't think it
Also,
crosses people's minds.
It holds a mirror up to a lot of, like, other people,
Yeah.
you know, and if they think, I don't know, it's just that, it's that fast-paced life of London as well, which is just, you know, every night's a drinking night in London.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah. And who are they to call me out if
Yeah.
they do? And I think that's why people don't.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, that job ended. And again, I had an exit interview.
So we're not even being caught at any point
No,
yet.
that was performance related again.
Right.
I said, and again, I was in that interview, I was like, are you sure that it's just because, and I was trying to play like the nice guy, I was like, are you sure? Because I just felt like I didn't perform. And they were like, yeah, no, we totally agree. Like, honestly. And I look back and I'm like, I don't know. Like, are you just saying that to get me out? And
Don't want to have the awkward conversation.
yeah, you don't have the, you also don't want the company to be known for that. You don't want me to kick
Yeah.
up about anything.
Yeah.
Or if you accuse me of this, because I'm a drunk, I'm going to be like, fuck you, and start to make a scene. I just left. They paid me for 2 months to leave early, and I just went. And again, the two managers that I had, when I started putting my story about, immediately got in touch, and they admitted, they were like, we just thought you were shit.
God.
And that was that. And there was no... Yeah, even the bigger boss of them got in touch as well and said, I can't believe this has happened.
So when do things start to get noticed now?
So after that, so I was with a partner at the time, and I was living with her, and she started to cotton on that things, I wasn't very motivated to look for the next job. I was kind of happy pissing about at home. Then she started to notice booze was going missing out, like their shared house cupboard. She was like, oh, have you had some of that? I'd be like, no, don't know what you're talking about. Like, they were drinking the most watered down red wine, I think. How that didn't cue them off, I don't know. Because before I'd replace a bottle, it would be literally 80% water. But she started to cotton on. I think people that are closest to you also are the ones that don't want to see it the most. So she didn't want to see it, but inevitably.
Also, lots of people don't want to have that type of conversation.
No.
They don't know how to.
Yeah.
They don't know how to approach it.
Quite.
We're also very good at making people feel bad if they accuse us.
Yeah.
You know that whole...
Exactly.
No, why would you ask me?
Yeah, and that's, yeah.
It's probably one of your housemates.
And it's a mixture of literally like, we're in denial, we're very defensive, we're also masters. So I could make her very easily think like she was crazy and that she was just off the rails, and actually just, why don't you go have a drink because you're the one overreacting here, love. And yeah, that played out for a while. And it was the same story until she did, you know, there were elements, I started to get caught out basically. You know, there was this little off license down the road that I'd stop in and buy bottles of Absolute vodka every day and hide them around her house.
I think there's another telltale sign, the hiding.
Yeah, oh god, yeah. Yeah, by this point the hiding was rife. I mean,
Yeah.
it was fucking everywhere. If you opened the cupboard that you didn't normally go into in their house, there would be a bottle there. And, you know, even their housemates started, like, some of their housemates would open cupboards and they'd be like, oh, we must have had that. And I was like, God, you guys must have had a big night, so just forget about that. It's obviously mine, but...
Is there any part of you at this point that is wanting to tell anyone about it?
No. Absolutely
Is
not.
that...
I'm still my best self.
Okay. So you don't see this as a bad thing, or that you're...
I think you know what you're doing isn't the norm, but you still don't see any downside to it because you're living day to day. You're ticking the box of normality every time I got my exit interview, and that was a plus. I got paid out, so they kind of, I'm still living with my girlfriend. I'm still like looking for a job. I'm still doing this. Everyone's still happy. So
Kind of got lucky as well, really.
Yeah. Like, why is there a reason to think that?
I'm not going to have to tell anyone if I don't have to tell anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And physically, you can feel it. So, but you just don't want to.
Ever being sick or anything like that, or is it just the shakes?
I think because with booze, your tolerance just increases. So your body just learns to handle more.
Yeah.
So I was never sick. And actually, hangovers just became shakes.
Yeah.
And anxiety, and that was quickly relieved with obviously
Another drink.
And it's really hard to put your finger on to describe how you felt in the moment, because I'm literally picturing the house where I went every day, brush my teeth, grab a red wine, brush them again, go back out the door, vodka on that. I can picture it all, but the feeling associated with it isn't one of, this is wrong, this is what I need to do next. It's almost like you become a fucking robot, to be honest.
It's just your system.
Yeah, you've literally gone.
You don't have time to think about it or feel.
No.
Because you're never really.
No.
If you're getting the shakes, you're topping yourself up. So you're never in a place where you can even start to have a genuine thought process.
Exactly. And if you are having one, it's how am I getting the next one in, and where is it? You're
consuming your whole brain. Yeah.
And you become like. At some point, I was
systematic.
But I became a great gentleman, because I'd walk my partner to the tube every day, and she loved it. But where did I go on the way home?
Offie.
I didn't walk her to the tube because I wanted to.
No.
I walked her to the tube because the offie was on the way home, and then all the housemates had gone from work, and I knew that I could then have a drink. I'd be 10 minutes too late, but problem solved all round. Girlfriend's happy. I've been to the offie. Everyone's good.
Ben can drink.
Yeah, and you just. I cooked more than ever in my life, and I cooked the most extravagant meals, because then I had to go to shops that were in a very different part of town to get what I needed for this meal, which meant
new spot.
more time for me. And so
And I'm
I made it work
guessing that
for me.
unemployment was, gave yourself a lot more time to play around with. Well, you don't have to hide anymore, really, do you?
During the day, no. The one thing that you had to watch out for is that you didn't get too fucked up for when everyone else came home from work.
Yeah.
That was the one parameter you had to watch out for. But to be honest, that was quite easy, because at this point, you're not. The level that you're getting to is to function, not to be pissed. At this point, I'm not feeling like I'm going to a party every day. I'm just functioning.
Yeah.
And that level of functioning is the amount I need to get to that level is now starting to increase. But that just happened. So if then I was then wanted to feel drunk at a friend's birthday, we'd really have to up the ante now.
Yeah.
So it's weird, because your sobriety level basically comes at a unit measure of alcohol. And for me, that's just getting higher and higher. Because a lot of people say, well, why don't you just pistols? It's like, no. You're getting to a level where you feel normal. Yeah.
Then for you, that's your everyday.
Yeah.
And then for you to feel pissed is going to have to seriously go above that.
Exactly that. And to be honest, after this point, there wasn't really ever a desire to, which is weird, because I spent so much of my time getting on this kind of sober level that I've become accustomed to. Beyond that is like not really of interest. So it's kind of I don't really feel the need to want to be drunk anymore. My main goal is just maintaining a level of functioning.
So you don't get another job, I'm presuming?
I don't get another job, no. So the aforementioned girlfriend who was starting to notice things essentially pulled the plug on this whole parade. She called my parents and said, I think there's something wrong with Ben. I don't know what it is, but something's not right. Someone needs to do something. So my parents, being my parents, obviously drove to London and disrupted my whole world that I'd literally built around this thing. So
they have no idea.
No one. As I say, the girlfriend was suspecting, but no. So the door goes at her house, and I'm like cooking dinner, and she goes, "Oh, just get that with you." I'm like, "Why would I get it? You're right by the door." She's like, "Just get the door." I was like, "Okay." So I opened the door, and
Did you know?
All of a sudden, then it's like everything just came crashing down. I knew. My heart just sank.
The game was up.
The amount of disappointment, just everything that I'd been pushing away, every emotion that I'd felt just went voof. And the whole world, it's like everything just went black. I was just like, fuck.
How did they approach that with you?
They came in. They came into the house. We all sat in the living room, and they were just like, "Look, we're really worried. Everyone's really worried. Simple as. We've all been having conversations. We don't know what to do. We don't know what's wrong, but we know we need to do something. So you're gonna come with us." And I was like, "Well, I'm not. Like, absolutely not. No, you're gonna come with us. Okay." And then I think at some point there was no option. There's no point putting up a fight. Not because I was scared to, but the girlfriend basically went, "Look, you're going out. You're not staying here. No one in the house wants you here. I don't want you here until we sort out whatever this fucking mess is. Your parents are basically saying they're taking you. Take the fucking hand." But I knew if I went, all those routines that I built were gone. I might have to open up and tell them the truth, or I try and work a new way around it, which was going to be very difficult given that I'm now going to be in the company of parents instead of doing what the fuck I want all day. So I've got the fear of God in me. So it's not only that you're being taken away, it's that your lifelines are being taken away, which
safety net is gone.
Yeah, massively, and it's all been gone like this. It's, you know.
Yeah, you're not prepared for it. You've been ambushed. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
terrifying.
Yeah, it was awful. Anyway, so I went. I didn't have a choice, and you know, as I was packing things, it was like, "Oh, Ben, have you got this? Have you got?" Yeah, and trying to tell, "Look, I don't have a problem. Will you just leave me alone?" And then stupidly, like, because you forget where everything's hidden. So I had 2 guitars in the house. So I was like, "Well, I'm bringing my guitars with me." So I popped open the guitar cases, and there's fucking 4 bottles of vodka, obviously in 2 and 2 in each case, and they're all, and it's literally like a sitcom, like someone had just been found out. Way, and so everyone just looked at me and just went, "Mm-hmm."
Yeah, and you're telling us that you don't have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the cat was kind of out the bag then. And you see, my parents are the ones that saved me and still are on my rocks and still absolutely everything. But even they at that point still didn't want to see the truth because they love you so fucking much that they don't want to come to terms with the fact that this could be a reality. So they kind of just, you know, and obviously all the way back to fucking Nottingham we're talking, and it's like a fucking 2.5 hour journey. I'm like, just kill me now. Bearing in mind now the booze is wearing off. I'm starting to shake. This is fucking awful. I know where I've always got 2 or 3 backups, so I know where they are in my bag, and it's all good, and I can have a drink when I get to the house. But you know, they're trying, "Oh, Ben, what's wrong and what's this?" And I'm just like, "God, please stop." And I was just in the car. I was like, "Can we just not?
Yeah,
Let's save this for tomorrow. Yeah. I need time to try and work out what the fuck is going on." Anyway, we get back to Nottingham, which is my mum's house. And we, you know, I just portrayed it as I had a shit time. I worked 2 jobs that I wasn't really that committed to. I just didn't like, and I'm just in a bit of a bad spot. I played it down. I said, "Oh, I just haven't been getting on with the girlfriend. You know, just in a bit of a rut, don't know what to do." And of course,
why wouldn't they
buy it?
Of course, why wouldn't they?
Exactly. Yes, and I admitted. I said, "Yes, I've had a few big nights. Yes, I've done some stuff that, yeah. And they bought it. And so Mum was like, "Okay, well, we need to sort out what's next." And I said, "Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Let me just get on my feet and we'll sort things out." So I was like, "Great, I've managed to park that."
Yeah.
So I went about my business in Nottingham, and nothing changed. And Mum is not stupid, so she started to cotton on, and then just routine started again, but in a different place. I went on bike rides, which meant I just stood out in the rain, so I looked like I'd been on a bike ride and was in the pub. They thought I was the fittest I'd ever been. I was fucking the least fit I've ever been. But anyway, this went on, and Mum started to cotton on and stuff, and she asked that I went to, what do you call it, like a volunteer group thing. I can't remember what the company is, but it wasn't AA, it was something else.
Turning Point.
Yeah, something
like that.
And I went to this group, and to be honest, just to please her, I was
Yeah.
taking miniatures with me, and I just was downing them in the toilet, listening to these people talk about their woes and not gelling with any of it, and being like, "Right, can I go now?"
Box ticked.
Yeah, Mum would walk around the corner and make sure and see me come out of the centre. Little did she know, I'd obviously walked in with loads, and just box tick. But now I see box ticks weren't for me anymore; they were for Mum. So that quickly shifted to be right. Just need to keep Mum happy. So box ticks went to a meeting. Box tick got a therapist. Box tick, blah 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 blah. And this, believe it or not, this was actually the start of change. So I started seeing a therapist and stuff. I used to go every week hammered and just not really listen. But I'm still with him today, and he's a fucking genius, but we'll get on to that. But I thought I was just starting to own a system again, own a rhythm, like I was still the one in control. And I think, Mum didn't know what to do. She was petrified. This went on for a few months, and the truth started to ease out of how much shit I was actually in. Because she said, right, we're going to the doctor. You need to be seen because, you know, they scanned my liver. Oh, that's fucked. You've done. Oh yeah, you're drinking that much. I don't think so. And obviously, so then she's like really worried, and then it just starts on this journey of like them pushing for help and me just resisting with everything I've got, right? And it kind of went on like that for a while, until my mum got through to me one day, and she was in tears. She came in the living room and she said, "I'm just fucking sick of two things." And I was like, right. One, literally walking behind you every night to bed because I'm scared you're going to fall backwards and break your neck. So she's like, I put you to bed every night. And the second is, I'm going to wake up with a dead son. And that really hit home. That was kind of like, oh God. Because it's not that mattered to me. Like, as in the dying bit or the falling backwards bit. I wasn't scared of that. It was just, she said that she was petrified of that. And I was like, fuck.
That's consuming her start and end of the day.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything. And by this point, sorry, I'm blacking out 2 or 3 times a day. Like, because I'm not drinking on demand like I was in London now. It's literally scheduled. Like, there's only one way to get through the day, and that's with drink. And Mum knew that at this point. And so we would go to the co-op every day and buy 4 bottles of wine, 8 cans of lager and a bottle of vodka, and that would see me through the day. Wow. And we had to come up with agreements. Like, that's all you're going to drink today. And that would be enough to get me through.
So we're at a stage now as well where you can't just stop.
No.
Like dead with that. You can't, because that's your life's at risk if you do that.
That's the next stage. That's what happened.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, Mum just said, look, we because none of us knew the risks. Like, they don't know the risks. No one knows the risk. And we kind of got to a point where I just said, look, I'm done. I said, look, I think I'm at a point where I can taper off and I'll handle it, blah, 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 blah. And she was just thankful that I'd even muttered those words. She wasn't aware of what I've actually done, which was I literally stopped the day before. And I was writhing about in bed. I said, we just need to leave the fucking house. I need to leave the house. So we went into Nottingham Town Centre, and I just seized. Like, bus stop, middle of town, bang, out. Woke up, ambulance crew was there. Like, don't know how many minutes I was out, but absolutely out. Woke up. It was like my body suddenly went, right, we're having a drink? No? Okay, we're out again. So seized again. So twice within inside like 10 minutes. Got rushed to the hospital. They confirmed, yeah, it's alcohol withdrawal seizure, whatever it's called. And yeah, they had me in there, and they said, we can detox you now on medication because there is no chance you're doing this without. Your body will just keep seizing. So I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, hook me up, fine, whatever. Let's just, I mean, I saw it as like, this is my chance, right? Yeah. So I'm lying in this hospital bed, and I'm on this like acute injury, or I don't know what unit it was, but it wasn't A&E, but it wasn't like a ward. It was, you know, for fucked up things in that moment. Yeah. And I'm looking around, I'm like, fucking hell. I'm like none of these people. What am I doing here? So there's this guy across the bed, and he's trying to talk to me, and I'm like, mate, just shut the fuck up, please. So I get bored of this. So my parents leave, and I'm like, fuck this. So I had IVs in both arms, pulled them out, and was like,
not for me.
Not having this. But I decided I needed to go back to the hospital because that's where everyone knew I was safe. And that was the thing, right? So I'm like, no. So out go the IVs, and I spent an hour before Googling where the nearest shop was, and I ran across a dual carriageway in a hospital gown to buy a bottle of vodka while I'm trying to be detoxed in hospital.
Imagine the cars that have gone.
Oh, mate, honestly. And I know that road. I know exactly the road I ran across, and it's like, what the... And I don't remember any of this. I'm like completely out of it. Like hallucinating / just completely in psychosis, like don't know where anyway, managed to get to the shop. I've got blood everywhere. Taxi driver outside the shop obviously sees something wrong and goes, where do you need to go?
Hospital?
And I was like, well, but I said my mum's house. So he was taking me back to my mum's house, and as I was on the way back to my mum's house, my mum rang me because the hospital had rung her and said, your son's done a runner. So she's now fucking flipping. She's like, well, what the Anyway, so I call her, and she's like, oh, hey, Ben, just wondering where you are at the moment, because obviously we know you've left the hospital. And I'm like, oh, don't worry about it, Mum. Just walking around in Islington, just in the park, just getting a cab over to friends. Like, that's whatever I believed. That I was completely out of it. And she was like, so you didn't know where you were? Anyway, got dropped off at Mum's house. They took me back to the hospital, and then I was in a monitored room. And I stayed there for a day. It was, again, just completely in psychosis. Wasn't making sense. I was talking like I was giving a work presentation. I thought my mum was my boss. I thought the nurse was some other woman that came to visit the company. Like, I was like giving a presentation on this whiteboard in this room. It's awful, man. And long and short of it is they said, look, we're not going to detox him here. He's not going to do it. If we keep him in this room, he's going to go insane. If we let him on the regular ward, he's going to leave. He's just run across he's just pulled all his meds out. Like, what do you want us to do? So basically we left there and things carried on. That didn't make me change. I was just gagging for a drink. I think then my parents are at wit's end. And I think at that point, you've just got to hope that, and this comes back to our discussion earlier about need and want, the only thing to do then was wait for me to find that point. And my mum has said multiple times that we were literally waiting for death or change.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
I was either going to kill myself drinking, but everyone was hoping that change was coming first.
So that wasn't enough, but what was?
I woke up at my dad's because I was basically flipping from parent to parent because they couldn't handle me for long periods at a time. But I was at my dad's and I woke up one day and I just flipped. I woke up, I reached for the bottle of wine that I always kept next to my bed. I went to try and drink it. Just wasn't happening. Tried vodka, wasn't happening. Nothing was staying down. It was like my body had just gone into revolt.
Yeah.
I cannot even begin to describe what it felt like trying to put that in. I couldn't do anything. And I was like cramping and I was seizing. I was just like, oh God, like the norm was not there. And eventually I did manage to get enough into me to where I could just about stumble downstairs. And I just looked at my dad. I was like, because rehab had been talked about at this point, but not specifically. And I just went to him and I said, is that rehab available? And he was like, yeah. I was like, I need to go now. Like, now. And my parents had a spot on reserve for the last few months, literally paying to keep a spot. And I went the next day. And I cannot tell you because I was used to physical pain. I was used to the mental pain. I was used to everything. I don't know what happened that specific day, but it just felt like something was different. It just felt like if I carried on now, I would probably have ended.
Do you think that if your body hadn't started to reject it, that you still would have carried
100%.
on? Yeah.
Yeah. I think
the fear of the fact that you weren't going to be able to physically consume it was like, okay, now the game's up.
Yeah. I think there was a flame of hope in there because of all the therapy work I'd done and like trying to start to understand what situation I'd got into. And all my therapist did at the time that I've now talked about him to no end because I'm just fascinated it wasn't about trying to make me change. It was about trying to keep hope alive. There needed to be a little bit of hope in me so that at that point where I went, well, what am I going to do? It wasn't just fuck it. It was actually, I could make this change. And I think that's the only reason I took that road is just, if physically I couldn't do it, it was either, well, fuck it, I'm just going to do whatever I can to get it in, or this might be a signpost. And I obviously took the signposted route straight to rehab.
So you do rehab. In terms of coming off of an alcohol withdrawal like that, did they just reduce your units day by day? Is that how that works?
No. So you basically stop drinking. So
you do stop straight away?
Yeah, but they put you on a medication called Librium, which essentially
I've heard
allows you to stop seizing.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know what it does, but it blocks some receptors or some other stuff in your brain, which and then you taper off that. So they'll dose you up depending on how dependent you are on alcohol, and then essentially over a week you taper off that. And of course, naturally, you believe you're dependent on the Librium, right? So then I'm at the medication window at the rehab shouting that I need more Librium because otherwise I'm going to fucking die. So it's all a cycle. But yeah, essentially you take that and you detox within a week, which is insane when you think about it, because 4 years worth of abuse and you literally detox within a week. But it is the worst. Well, as you can imagine, it's just fucking awful.
Well, I can't actually, because my withdrawals were sleep and night sweats. Probably that for 10 days, and then 6 weeks to get my sleep back on track. I mean, the dreams and things like that were just wild. But in terms of withdrawals, not necessarily shakes or, I don't know, what was that like?
Have you seen Trainspotting?
Yeah.
Like that?
Really?
You know, yeah. It's I kind of say it time just stands still. You're just literally writhing about a bed. You're sweat. You remember that hand smell? That's now coming out of everywhere. You're sick. You just
sweat, hot and cold.
Yeah. You're just right. It's like the worst case of the flu and COVID mixed together. With also you're being sick. Your stomach's churning. Your body you can't eat. You can't really keep water down. Obviously, there's all the sugar in booze, so you're now deficient in all of that. So they're trying to get drink like isotonic drinks in you, and you're just like, fuck off. I just literally can't. You don't believe that you've been sleeping, even though you had. So I kept the news channel on just so I could see the minutes tick by to prove to myself that time was moving, because I felt that shit that I did. And I remember just lying in the bed, just watching the BBC headlines roll, just to simply believe that time was moving and that things were getting better. Because obviously they can control the seasoning with the medication, but the booze has got to come out of you one way, and your body is basically like you're draining its blood, right? You're draining its lifeline. There's nothing you can do about it, and that's where you're in that environment. It's very hard to quit at that point, though, because
do you realise in that moment I'm sick?
Yeah. And I think you realise you can't. You know you're very unwell at that point, but you don't have the mental capacity to fully appreciate.
No, because you've got to get through that physical side.
Yeah. And then a week in, I just sat on my bed and just cried for fucking, I don't know how long. I just couldn't. Everything just flooded at you. The first thing people jump to is like, oh, you're ashamed, like, blah, blah, what, your family. No, I'm not ashamed. I'm just feeling everything that I haven't felt and numbed for so long, and just what I've put myself through. There's time to feel ashamed and sad for everything I did to my family. There's time for apologies.
I think those things crop up later down the line.
Yeah, now it's about me.
Acceptance is that phase of like, fuck.
Yeah.
And getting all your feelings back. Like they say that all the time when you get sober. The great thing is you get all your feelings back, and the bad thing is, you start to get the belly laughs once, and like finally, but it doesn't mean you're not going to have the fucking tears and
exactly. Exactly that.
You get all of it back. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah, and it's like a wave. You can't control it. No one can. And I saw enough people come in and out who were hitting that wave, and everyone reacts to it differently. Me, the outgoing kind of soul, suddenly became shut my door, and I'm just going to deal with this myself. And it was rough.
You're doing therapy and rehab.
Yeah. So so when you feel ready, they don't push you into it, but when you feel ready, you do sessions every day. You do group sessions and individual sessions. It's non-stop because your brain is so used to trying to get hold of everything and run its day that you can't just go to nothing. You can't just sit in a room and do jack shit and watch fucking Wallace and Gromit all day. Like, it doesn't work like that. You have to fill your brain as quick as you can to keep you occupied. And that's why cross addiction is such a huge thing, right? Because because you have to fulfill that time and that brain power that you were dedicating to your addiction so much that you have to redirect it.
Also, like getting your dopamine from somewhere.
Yeah, quite. And the physical things that you need. Alcohol is one of those things where it's full of sugar and it's full of everything. So,
in terms of the physical implications for you then, liver and things like that, did you get that all looked at when you went into the rehab?
Yeah. And to be honest, it was done just before. So as long as they could see a regression or a progression, whichever way it is, of things getting better. I mean, they can't get any fucking worse.
No.
Then you're generally okay. I mean, luckily, I went in when I was 27, so it's very different from some of the guys that were in there that are 60. I was lucky enough where...
Just show you, though, the sort of amazing sort of... with the way the body can handle things.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about that's 4 years. Some people do that for...
Yeah.
Not comparing, but I'm just saying...
Yeah, quite.
How quickly...
Quite.
When I think about 10 years of active addiction, now 8 months, it's like, it's nothing.
It's nothing.
It's nothing.
Nope.
And to feel this happy, but to have been that sad.
Exactly.
It's mad.
And it's time... It's interesting, though, because you get then you get users that do... or addicts that do a little bit every day, but they stay a functioning alcoholic for a long time. Mine was very much destructive drinking, not in the sense of binging, but destructive 100%. Like, I kept getting worse. I didn't keep it at a level. And so that makes the body react very differently. But a lot of the people that I was in there were, just 20, 30-year alcoholics. And it doesn't make one easier to overcome than the other. It's not like the longer one is more set in, because you could look at it as, well, that was a small part of your day where mine was all consuming for 4 years. So it's
few far and in between.
But it helps you understand so much about how many different forms it can take.
Oh, yeah.
It was fascinating.
And how differently it can manifest in people.
Yeah.
For sure.
And how people deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not only the cross-addiction side, but just hearing people talk about how they plan to recover. And, like, you listen to some people, you're like, what the fuck?
I know.
It's balmy.
I know.
But then everyone finds their own way. And I think it's the biggest thing that I try and preach is just, you have to just find your own way.
Yeah.
And for me, I did AA meetings. I've tried everything under the sun. And I'm now in a place where, like, I know how to I know where my addiction is, I know how to manage it, and I know what my triggers are. And it's like, it doesn't look the same as someone that goes to AA. It doesn't look the same as someone who relies on a therapist. It doesn't look the same as someone who has a family with kids. But
What does it look like?
I honestly, I do it for me. I honestly do. And I'm wholeheartedly supportive of fucking anything that helps people master addiction.
Whatever you need to do.
But
There's
for
no
me,
one set way.
Exactly, and I did AA meetings all throughout rehab. I carried on with a bit afterwards and stuff, but they weren't for me, and
They
that's okay.
serve the purpose for you. Yeah, I think that's important, you know, and I think people can be quite judgmental if you start with doing something like fellowship and then you decide that, you know, that serves purpose for me. That's, you know, it's played its part, and thank you so much for that. But
And it's difficult because it does, you know, people often ask me, and I do, you know, when I'm in Nottingham, I do sometimes go back to the group where I started. And like, it's fucking amazing to see people that are still there. And they're just like, I just don't know how you do it without coming to the meeting. I'm like, look, who cares? Let's just have a hug.
Yeah.
We're all still here, we're all still fucking sober, we're all still alive.
That's still
so
what matters.
happy days.
Yeah.
And I think for me, like, I don't know what counts as long-term sober, but I must be halfway there, right?
I reckon not quite an old timer, but I reckon you're definitely not a newcomer.
And I honestly think that anyone who's kind of in that middle spot where they're like, oh, you know, it's very difficult for the first year, right? Because you're still battling something. The second year becomes like, okay, I see that life's better. I see that I'm doing the right thing. Then the third year comes and you're like, okay, I'm starting to reap the benefits. You get to a point where 6 years in, it's still on my mind all the time. I still know what I have to do. I can't get complacent. I know what my triggers are. But I'm just living, man. Like, the life that I have now, I couldn't have fucking even started to dream of 6 years ago, let alone, you know, I'd have been happy if I was alive 6 years ago, right? And that's why it's kind of, the machine now just feeds itself. Right, and do I want to drink? I almost, like, it's a longing thought. I always know that was the love of my life, but it doesn't need to be in the forefront anymore. And it's kind of at a point where it's like it's at peace, but it's not, I can't let it go.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Now, some people would say it's fucking mad. What are you talking about?
But if you fully let it go, does that not fall into the realms of complacency and then, oh, maybe I could.
Desire.
Maybe I could.
Yeah. Yeah, but
then
then
you know you can't.
But then, yeah, exactly. But then some people, I think, live by, they say, I can't drink. Well, I know I can't drink, but I don't need to say that to myself, because if I can't do it, we often want it more. And then you become fearful of alcohol. Well, where does that get you? What does being scared of something get you? So, but that's my take. And some people want to regain the thing where it's like, I'm scared that if I do that, then this will lead to that, and that will lead to that. Well, that's cool.
Yeah, and that's your
thing.
thought process.
My thing is just, yeah.
It's a bridge. I think a lot of this stuff is there to be a bridge to normal living.
Yeah.
It's not there to, you know, and if you need to go to a meeting every single day until you die, that's your thing.
That's your thing.
But if you don't, it's not something to look down on.
No, absolutely not.
Those meetings are supposed to be there for you as and when you need them. Have you had any times where you've sort of been close to relapse?
Hand on heart, honestly, not really.
Yeah, but it's funny, isn't it? Because I have that where people ask me that, and it's like, if I feel like if I say no, I genuinely haven't thought about it. It's like, oh, you can't have been that much of an addict.
Right.
What is that?
Exactly.
Because to trust me, I did 1,000 relapses before I surrendered to the fact that I was sick and I needed to get help.
Yeah.
And it's like this thing of you can't just be sober and enjoy it. It's got to be this constant battle.
Yeah.
And it's not always.
It's not.
It's actually not. It's not always.
And I think the people who quickly question you saying no, I haven't, are the ones that are white knuckling it the whole life.
One finger pointing at me and three back at you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Quite.
Have a check yourself a little bit.
I think I think the way in which people go, obviously we've just said, is very different, right? And I think people think they understand, and they get to the understanding, they get to the trauma, they get to the not fitting in, they get to the mental thing that started this cycle. They start to understand that, And then, as we were talking about box ticking, they go, okay, I've understood.
But even if you're not an addict, right, you are the biggest project you're ever going to work on. So,
Right.
like, you're always growing as a
Yeah.
human being, regardless of being an addict. So you're just because the things you've done in your addiction days doesn't mean that you're not going to face issues where you're being a bit of an asshole when you're not an
Right.
addict, or when you're making mistakes. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that is just life.
And that's why I think when you tick that box of finding it, that's where you don't stop. And I
Yeah.
think that's honestly, I've got friends in recovery, and I openly tell them this. I'm like, you need to do more, because they still live in this kind of battle, and it's not a difference between me and them. They just ask what I've done differently. And the difference is, I worked out what the issue was, but I have not stopped working for like 4 or 5 years to get to now where it's like, I feel like I have a full holistic view and can appreciate every single bit of the way that my mind operates and where it goes and why it does it. And I apply it to fucking everything. I apply it to, the trauma that I have now. I apply it to sadness that I have now, because I fully understand. I don't think I'll ever fully understand. That's the wrong
But
phrase.
you're self-aware.
Yeah, I didn't just tick a box and go, I drank because I didn't fit in. Okay, let's live life. It's like I can't tell you how many hours of therapy to get to.
So you've had the same therapist for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
So would you say that's a big part of your sort of just daily reprieve, I suppose?
Yeah. I think because our sessions look obviously vastly different now.
Yeah.
And they're not really anything to... I can't remember the last time we talked about drinking in our sessions. And it's not just
But
about...
that's good, because that's all part of...
Exactly. And someone goes, well, why are you still seeing an addiction counsellor? Well,
Yeah.
because I want to fucking understand.
Because you're always going to be an addict.
Yeah.
That's not going to
Quite.
change, but your
Exactly.
issues won't always be substances.
Yeah. And I think we never know what's around the corner, right? Like, I have been in the 6 years, I've been lucky to not suffer a horrendous grief, or death, or I haven't had huge things happen. And we play the tape forward. The problem is...
I love that one.
We play the tape forward from exactly where we're at. So in early recovery, you start... I remember saying to my counsellor way back, and he jokes about it all the time, because whenever I do something new, like when I went to a gig for the first time, I went to a wedding for the first time, I went to whatever, he's like, yeah, do you remember when we discussed that? And I was like, I could never go to a wedding again. This is
Yeah.
fucking... Why are you saying I could go to a wedding? That's fucking ridiculous. And it's just like, yeah, because you play the tape forward from that point. But... you progress and you progress and you progress and you progress until going to a wedding is like a second thought. I had booze at my fucking wedding.
Did you?
Yeah. Why would I not?
I did my first wedding after... It was one of my best friends, and I think I was 5 months in. And do you know what? It was fine, but the thing that was the issue... The thing that happens there is that you start to realise how many surface-level conversations you just... oh, my God.
Yep.
And also, maybe the people you're sat next to aren't addicts, but my God... Like, even my dad said to me the other day, he's not an addict. He is so far from it. But even he said to me, he was like, if you asked me to go to a wedding, and not drink, I'd find that really weird, because we've been conditioned to always drink at those sorts of things.
Definitely.
Do you feel, obviously we're talking about going to weddings and doing the first time things. Do you feel when you go there that there's a judgment of the fact that you don't drink? You get that classic, oh, come on, you could just have one.
Yeah, I think everyone's... I'd like to say things are changing in the right direction, right? Where it is becoming definitely more accepting in places like the workplace and stuff. When I was first sober, you'd turn up to work drinks to people, why aren't you drinking? Especially with clients or people that don't know. I mean, I've been quite outward in talking about it, so people that know me tend to know the deal. But I think I'd like to say norms are changing, right? But I think it's down to expectations. People turn up wanting a big night. Because of whatever reason of their wanting to drink. If all of a sudden one wheel isn't drinking, you're like, well, hold on a minute, the team's being let down here. And it actually comes down to perception, right? If people are turning up wanting a fucking rager of a night, and all of a sudden you've got 2 sober people, their perception is weird. Whereas the same thing was true of us when we were those people. Yeah. And you go, oh fuck, they're sober. What the fuck? Obviously, it's not strong because it's the other way around. But I think people are starting to see certainly that it isn't needed for some people. I
think it's interesting though, because I feel quite a lot of shame around how I used to behave in that situation as an addict. And actually I've worked it out now. It was just pure jealousy of the fact that you had something better to go and do that wasn't getting off your tits. So if someone was sort of at mine on a Saturday and was, hitting at the 3 a.m. mark, and they were like, I've got to go because I've got Sunday lunch tomorrow, I'd be like, boring, what are you doing? Just roll through like me. We'll order more drugs, we'll get more drinks, and we'll carry on.
And when you flip that, it's not just that they've got something better to do, we've got a better life to do.
Yeah. But I look back on that now, and I just thought you were just so envious of the fact that And the easiest way for you to do it, because it holds a mirror up as well, you know, and I have found that the most common, the people who are the most sort of that jokey but also very sort of insinuating of like, oh wow, you know, it's those are the ones who you're probably quite similar to me.
Yeah.
And you don't like it.
Yeah, very much so. And I still think there's not enough understanding. And I've been lucky enough to have family members admit to it, certain aunt and uncles, and kind of say, like, I just don't get it. And
But that's okay.
And that's okay.
Because
and I love it. And it's, I think...
You're not going to. And that's the massive thing is, if you are not an addict, it's okay that you don't understand it. You don't need... You're never going to, actually. You don't need to try to work it out. It's like what they say in the rooms, you know, with this thing of the higher back. You don't have to know. All you have to know is that when you, Ben and Hannah, are running life on your own terms, it didn't go too well. Yeah. And that's about it, really.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be a big thing.
Exactly, yeah.
When you are doing social events and things, are you an alcohol-free person, or...?
Not in the sense... No.
No.
I've always wanted to be. I knew it wasn't going to happen in the early days just because... I guess of the fear of it leading back to something, even though I don't think it would. And I was literally at a gig last week, and I looked across, and a guy had 2 Beck's Blues. And I said to Emma, my partner, I was like, you know what? I could be that guy. I'd like to have a bit. I'd like to feel like that. And this is the thing, is it's interesting how it's gone from, like, I'm fearful of that it could leap back, but now I associate those alcohol-free beers with a feeling that I could have.
Yeah.
And actually, that's where I went flag even more so than before, because it's like, well, if I'm associating alcohol-free beers with a feeling, well, then all I'm going to want is the real thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And some people can do it. And I've absolutely nothing against people that do. And I think... You know, I think some people almost look down on people that are able to do it, because they go, well, you can't have been a real addict if you can have an alcohol-free beer. It's like, look, you're not drinking, are you?
But I think, again, it's this personal journey, isn't it? My primary was cocaine, so I feel like you're so right. There, you know, people that can, people that can't. But essentially, I think that if you enjoyed the taste as opposed to the feeling...
Quite.
That's another thing, you know. But saying that, mine's really, really dependent on, I can have it's weird, I can have a non-alcoholic gin and tonic because I love the taste of it, I love that. I wouldn't even try a wine. I wouldn't even even give it the time of day, because I know that was my nemesis. A Sauvignon Blanc white wine, that was too close to the curb for me.
Yeah.
And I know that.
And that may change for you as time goes on. But knowing where you're at right now is... And I think...
What's really interesting as well is at the start of recovery, I was probably having 2 a night. You know, 2 a night. And now, I don't even think about it, but if I go out socialising with friends, or, you know, I'm going to my parents for dinner, I will have 1. But it's weird. I could have half of it and leave it. I've got no... It's because what your brain realises is you're not getting anything out of it.
Yeah, quite. And it's... Yeah.
It hits a little spot of... I'm having the same glass as everyone else, and I'm having, you know, got a bit of garnish in there. But apart from that, that's it.
Kind of starts to go, what's the point?
Yeah.
And I think it is true. When you felt so much from something, like cocaine, alcohol, whatever, you kind of start to question, well, what is a little bit doing for me anymore? Because you've been to the extreme of, I've had my hands on as much as something as I can possibly do. It kind of puts it... It's like when I quit smoking. It's like... When I left rehab, I was smoking 40 a day, because it was a vice. It was one of the fucking many vices that I had. And it was controlling some sort of urge. And when I came to quit, I could feel my whole body was like, I just feel terrible. You know, and it went on for like 3 or 4 years. I used to smoke as well, but it got worse as I got sober. And I decided to kind of make the point of change. And I tried stopping straight up and just couldn't. I tried doing it this way. So I tried basically the same way as I quit booze, and I just couldn't, because there was nothing saying to me, well, if you stop now, you'll live X amount longer, and if you carry on, you'll die, because I wasn't given that choice. So I was like, okay. So I tapered down, and I started at 40, and then it was 30. And by about week 5, I was like 10 a day, and I went, fuck this. What am I... And I just stopped. So, and I think
that's interesting when you've sort of nailed one. I mean, I'm nowhere near that, right? So my vape is my absolute life. But I'm very aware. In active addiction, it was kind of the secondary thing, you know. It was there to accompany the sesh. Now, how addicted I've become to that in the space of this 8 months. I've not had a Coke and alcohol or other drugs. I wake up in the middle of the night and I smoke that thing. But I'm also very aware of the fact that I know that if I want to give that up, I have to want to give it up. And I don't right now. So I'm accepting of it.
Absolutely.
Is when you learn how you did one thing, I know that I don't want to smoke that forever. But at the moment, one day at a time, one thing at a time.
100%.
And I think people, you know, if you try to give up everything all at once, I mean, you will always recognise an AA meeting, CA, NA, GA, right? Because everyone out there is smoking or vaping, whatever. And it's the same as anything, food, all of it. If you don't want to give it up, you're not going to.
Yeah, we all have a primary issue.
Yeah.
And you will, I genuinely think that over time, again, you start to want to stop more as you go on. And I had the weirdest habits, man. Like because of all the sugar in booze. When I stopped drinking, I used to wake up and eat a pack of biscuits in the middle of the night every night. Yeah. No joke. And I did that for 3 years. Because it was so fucking habitual. It was the only way I'd get back to sleep. And it's fucking balmy.
It is because you think sugar keeps you up, but actually, your brain is so fucking powerful.
Pack of Oreos, I'd be asleep like that. If I didn't have the Oreos, I'd be awake all night. But eventually you go, oh, okay, it's probably time to tackle that. And you do. But you don't have to do everything at once. Yeah. You really don't. Everyone's got the number one vice that is harming them, others around them, and all of that. And tackle that first, man. And then deal with the bickies or the vape. There's no rush.
I just want to ask, finally, sort of like in terms of keeping yourself sober, what's your... What do you do to keep yourself sober now?
I just check in with myself as much as I can. I have a therapist. I talk to him every other week. That's obviously got down. I used to talk to him twice a week when I first got sober. I think it's really important. I scream from the rooftop about therapy because, like I say, we don't even talk about addiction, but it keeps my feelings at bay because I know if my feelings spiral, that's what gets me into situations. And whether that is being lonely, whether that's feeling left out, whether that's whatever that feeling is, I like to keep it at bay. But first and foremost, I keep myself in check. And some people do that with gratitude lists. Some people do that with a diary that they keep. Some people do. I kind of mix between all three, to be honest.
When you feel those feelings of, which all of us do, but they remind you of that place, that dark place, how do you sort of tackle those now? Talking?
Mainly, yeah. But it sounds really strange, but I kind of talk to myself.
Yeah, same.
Because
you trust yourself again.
Exactly.
That inner dialogue now is no longer negative or trying to trip you up. I mean, mine definitely is at times, but most of the time it's positive. Yeah. That's been the biggest change ever.
Exactly. And it's not like we're perfect. It's not like we say to ourselves, oh, everything's someone else's problem. But if it's something to do with someone, I'll try and work out whether it actually is to do with me. And that's not to put the blame on someone else, it's just to protect myself. And if it is to do with me, I'll take that to therapy. I'll take that to a friend. I'll take that to my wife. I'll take it to someone trusted, right? But the number one thing is daily, it's just checking in with myself daily, thinking, okay, I've had a stressful day. Why have I had a stressful day? And it's not to forget about the moment, it's just to realise what's happened and why it's happened.
I think it's a blessing and a curse getting sober because you get very present, but also with yourself, and you have a real strong conscience of your behaviour. Yeah. Sometimes Massively. It's quite annoying, you know, because
you want to be a different person.
But I can be gossiping with my best friend who I've known since I was 13. I trust her with my life. I know that gossip isn't going to go anywhere else. But in my conscience, I'm like, you know, I might, I don't know, send someone a TikTok video and think, oh, God, I shouldn't be being mean about that. And I think you feel that all now. But in serious cases, that really plays a good part in life.
Definitely. And I think just being, you know, to add to all the above, it's just being grateful. Like,
because you don't have, like, in active addiction, it's everyone else's fault that you are the way that you are. Yep. There's no way that I would ever sit there and be like, oh, but I've got great parents and I've got a brother and I've got a house and I've got a this. For me, it was, but I don't have this and I don't have that.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, the sun pokes through the sky and I'm like, oh, God.
Yeah.
People say, do you not get bored? No. I can look at that and just be elated.
Quite. And it's all the little thing. I think earlier, you know, if we talk about the start versus where I'm at now, in the beginning, it's all the little things. You're like, oh, I just love that I'm awake for that. I love that I can do that. I love that I can go out to dinner and do that. I love that this person is in my life again. And you kind of, you hold on to those little things. And that's exactly what you should be doing because they're all the new things that you've suddenly have almost like, you know, it's like spring. They've all just sprung and, oh, hello. Whereas now those gratitudes for me are more long term. Like I don't know how to kind of describe it properly, but they're just big, not bigger, because I'm not saying all the little things aren't important. Of course they are, but as your journey progresses, you just are thankful that your whole being is on this progression.
Yeah.
Like, I still remember the tiny things, and I'm still fucking so grateful for everything. I write to my rehab most months and just still thank them. And I talk to my therapist and thank him and send him Christmas shit and stuff. It's all tiny shit, but it all made me to where I'm at now. But now I'm just grateful for just every day that I take, right? Whether it's shit or good. And I think that gratitude, just like I said before about the cycle of being where I'm at now, it just all starts to feed itself. So I could answer the question a lot easier, like how I stay sober 1 year in, because I had lots of tools and lots of things. And it's weird looking back and going, I needed a lot back then, but actually now...
That's set that's given you the tools to carry through with it.
And I think people, kind of a question that I used to ask and get asked a lot is like, what am I going to do when I'm in year 6? Like, how am I going to get to year 10? It's like, honestly...
It just gets better and better.
Yeah.
That's what
I look back and I'm like, well... why did I ask this question? But you do, because you're worried about how am I going to keep this going. You
also, as you go further on the journey, you trust the sober people you talk to.
Yeah.
And that's the common thread is that it only gets better.
And it's funny how you strive for every single milestone, and you're kind of, you're jealous of those in the room. Or sometimes, actually, I remember in early recovery, I used to be like, yeah, I like being the one in really early recovery because people give you attention. Whereas like now, I strive to be Dave, who's got 20 years on the chalkboard.
Yeah, that the newcomers come to.
Yeah. And it's like, I now strive to be that guy. Because I think it's what's shaped my whole life now. And there's no other way to look at it. And I understand why some people keep it behind closed doors. I understand totally to do with that. But for me, there's no bigger celebration.
It's the rebirthing of yourself.
100%. I've done more since I was 27 to 33 now than I ever did in my first fucking 27 years of life. Not to say, it's a weird thing. People say, oh, do you regret it? Do you regret this? Like, absolutely not. The biggest thing I did was fuck myself up as much as I did, because the stuff I've done afterwards, has shown me that there is a better way. If I didn't have that moment, or I just teetered on that edge of, my body didn't give up, or my parents didn't step in where they did, or whatever, like, fuck, I wouldn't be here. So how can I be angry at the time that made me change? Like, it's difficult to think about myself in that hospital bed, fucked up, but that's the only reason I'm here. So in
a weird way, I'm grateful for that last horrific time. You do become grateful because it gave you the gift of desperation and the rebirthing of yourself.
And I think now it's also a weird phrase, but like respect for what you've lost. Like when you lose that side of you, it is the biggest grief you will ever go through. Like you think, there's other griefs you go through in life, and they are fucking horrendous, but this is the biggest one personally, physically, your mind will ever go through, was the loss of everything you believed in, right? And you have to have respect for that loss, because if you don't look at it as a loss, a lot of people jump straight to, thank God I've given that up. So that's great. But you have to have respect for the loss and understand what you lost to build on. And I'm not saying look at yourself as a piece of shit and start from zero. I'm just saying respect what happened.
I think, and don't be afraid of those thoughts of, missing aspects of that. Yeah, I miss being naughty, that naughty side of it, the rebellion. I miss that, and not being a rebel anymore, or what I classed as that. Not picking up drugs, not just being mischievous. I don't have that anymore. I miss that, because that was me. And
people say you'll find other ways to do it, and I honestly...
No, I don't think there's going to be anything more naughty than doing illegal drugs for me, It's not really...
And I guess, people try and say you'll find the adrenaline, and that's why a lot of people become adrenaline junkies. But I think you find peace in other ways, and you find excitement in other ways.
Also, you don't go back to the first time where you're picking up drugs and that piece of adrenaline. It will go straight back to where you left off.
Yep.
And there's nothing fun about that.
Exactly.
Thank you so much
for
being a Class A person.
Woo.
You've been amazing. I've learnt loads.
Good.
Fantastic. Give me a hug. Thank you.
Thanks so much.